Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of In Pursuit of a Parlay. I am your host, Chris Horwedel, and this is Season 2, Episode 28. 28 of these things, where has the time gone? Football season's over. We're in the thick of March Madness. This could not be more exciting. We're putting the show out a little bit early this week, as you can clearly see. We want to get ahead of the Sweet 16 action. That's what we're going to be picking today, each and every one of the 8 Sweet 16 matchups this week. As I say every single week, thank you so much. Every week the show's getting bigger and bigger. We're doing so great on YouTube. We're doing so great on Spotify and other podcast platforms. If you are checking us out on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the videos, comment, do all that cool stuff. If you're checking us out on Spotify, make sure you're following the show so you don't miss an episode there. You can do all of that good stuff. So thank you very much. Without you guys checking this out and without the support, we wouldn't get to do this. And, that'd be a bummer, right? So let's dig into it. Sweet 16 action. I have, as you can see, if you're checking us out on YouTube, youtube.com/theunderdog or mattcronepicks.com will get you to the same place. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see we've got this open in front of us, bovadasportsbook.com, as we always do. And we're going to dig right into the matchups this week because they're good, they're fun, they're unpredictable, they're everything you want from an NCAA tournament. Game 1 right here. It's going to start tonight in about 7 hours, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time in New York, New York. Number 7, Michigan State. Number 3, Kansas. And it really is looking like a coin flip for who can win this one outright. Two very evenly matched teams. Kansas State scores a little bit more efficient offensively, but Michigan State, they're kind of built for this, right? This is what they do. This is the Tom Izzo deal. He's made for tournament runs. So Michigan State is coming off of a good win over Marquette. They win 69-60, and they beat USC in the first round, which actually I had USC winning, led by point guard Tyson Walker, shooting guard Tyson Walker, 14.8 points per game, and point guard AJ Hoggard leads the way in assists, 5.9. For Kansas State, they were a good, not great team all season. They're coming off of a big win over number 6 Kentucky, 75-69. Keontae Johnson, their forward, is the guy for this team, 17.5 points per game. Marcus Noel leads the way in assists, 7.8. Johnson also leads the team in rebounding. So, we're showing this is a slight Kansas State cover. This is even money. I do think this game is going to be extraordinarily tight. A lot of money is going Michigan State recently. I know they're built for this, but Kansas State is a good and underrated team. We're going to take, for our first pick of this parlay, number 3 Kansas State money line outright victory over Michigan State, and that's even money at Bovada. I don't have an issue with it. I'll tell you, this is probably the toughest of the games to pick as I was looking in advance, but I think Kansas State has this. Let's go to our next game right here. Number 8, Arkansas. Number 4, UConn. Two really fun teams. We're showing UConn wins this one about 2/3 of the time outright. Arkansas is just such a strange team. There's so much talent, as I've mentioned in the past, with Ricky Council and Anthony Black and Nick Smith and all of those guys. But they've never seemed to quite come together. They're coming off of a 1-point win, an upset victory over number 1 Kansas, 72-71, beat Illinois in the first round. Council, their leading points guy, 16.1. Anthony Black, 4 assists a game, leads the way. They're good at a lot, not great at anything. For UConn, the number 10 team in the country coming into the tournament, great season in the Big East, finished 4th behind some very strong teams. I think the X factor in this game is probably their big man, Adama Sanogo, who 20 points seems reasonable for them. They're an outstanding scoring team, top 40 in the country at 78.5, 33rd in the nation in rebounds per game at 38.9, and 12th in assists per contest. Good defensive team, underrated going into the tournament. So we're showing that UConn's going to cover this one about 71% of the time. I have no problems with that whatsoever, and that's where we're going to land. UConn -4, -110 at Bovada for our second pick of this parlay. And now 2 picks in, that's going to bring our number up to +282. We're going to move to the next game right here. Number 9, Florida Atlantic versus number 4, Tennessee. We're showing this one probably not going to be super competitive. Florida Atlantic, a great story getting this far, but Tennessee, we have winning this one outright about 85% of the time. For FAU, great season. Nobody's going to take that away. 33-3. They win Conference USA. They beat Memphis in the first round, and then they beat the upset-minded Fairleigh Dickinson in the second round, 78-70. John L. Davis, their leading points guy, it's 13.9 per game. But there just isn't a ton there. They play a unique and kind of, frankly, boring brand of basketball. For Tennessee, they're loaded. There's a lot of talent there. They're led by their guard, Santiago Vescovi, 12.7 points per game, but they have a ton of contributors. Coming off of a big win, 13-point win over a Duke team that I thought was going to advance a little bit further in this tournament after beating Louisiana by 3 in the first round. Crazy they beat Louisiana by 3 and then Duke by 13. Doesn't seem right to me. But the odds say FAU covers this one. It is 5.5 points. It does seem like a lot. I think Tennessee likely covers, but we're trying to get a victory here. I'm not worried about the number being gigantic. We're going to take Tennessee for the money line victory, -240 at Bovada, our third pick of this parlay. And that is going to bring this number all the way up to +441 going into our fourth game. And it's a good one. It's a fun one. Probably, I would say, the game of the Thursday, Friday, the Sweet 16 segment of this tournament. Number 3, Gonzaga versus number 2, UCLA. The numbers say UCLA wins this one about 64% of the time. I don't know if I'm 100% on board with that. I like a lot of the things that Gonzaga does. Let's talk about them. They were 30-5 this season. They won the WCC. And I feel like there's a little bit of they're a little bit underrated, despite what they've done in the past, because they're coming out of the WCC. Beats they 14-2 conference record. Like I said, 30-5 overall. Drew Timme has just been. I mean, he should. He's 39 years old at this point, I think, but 21 points per game, 3.2 assists, leads the way, leads the team in rebounding, leads the team in field goal percentage. It is the Drew Timme show. They score the second most points in the country, the 25th most assists. Just a good, underrated, seasoned Gonzaga team. For UCLA, the number 7 team in the country coming into this tournament, 31-5. They win the Pac-12. Their leading points guy, Jaime Jaquez Jr. You all know him from tournaments past. Tiger Campbell leads the way in assists. UCLA, nothing jumps out at you statistically, but there's a lot of talent on the roster. We're showing Gonzaga covers this one a little bit more often than not, as they are the underdog. I think they're going to win this one outright. I really do, and that's what we're going to land here. We're going to take Gonzaga money line +105 at Bovada for our fourth pick of this parlay today. And that is going to bring the number up to +1,009, 4 picks in. It's going to be a solid number. We may hit 5 digits here. As I mention every week, hitting a parlay, especially an 8-leg parlay, is extraordinarily difficult. So I don't want to be responsible for you losing money. My advice to you: take the picks you get from me, discard the ones you don't, combine them with what you like, do whatever the hell you want. It's your money, right? Just do not be a slave to the parlay picks by any stretch of the imagination. Don't fall in love with that gigantic number at the end of the show. Be smart. Don't be a bad bettor. That's not the way to go. All right, let's turn to the Friday games right here. If you're checking it out on YouTube, number 5 San Diego State, number 1 Alabama. I didn't have San Diego State getting this far in the first place. I thought this was a team that was ripe for a first round upset. We're showing Bama wins this one about 85% of the time. For San Diego State, they were 29-6. They won the Mountain West Conference. Matt Bradley, their leading scorer, 13 points per game, their shooting guard, and Lamont Butler, their point guard, leads the way and assists at 3.3. They're just, again, like a lot of these teams that we've seen so far, kind of in the middle statistically in most categories. 192nd in points per game, 134th in rebounds per game, 178th in assists per game. Are they overmatched? Well, Alabama was 31-5 and they won the SEC. Brandon Miller looks like he's a top 5 pick in the draft, though, had a rough first round against Corpus Christi. There's no doubt about that. But came back, had 19 points on, let's call it what it is, an inefficient 5 of 17 shooting. Are there injuries? Maybe. There was no assist. 7 rebounds was solid, but you'd like to get more than that. We'll assume he's a little bit more healthy now with the time off. And former Villanova guard Hurts. Javon Quinterly leads the team in assists at 3.6. We're showing, this is a big number. This is a plus 7.5 line. We are showing San Diego State covers this one about a little more than 50% of the time. I'm not with it. I think this is the game that Bama puts everything together. So that's where we will land. We'll take Alabama minus 7.5, minus 110 at Bovada for our 5th pick in this parlay. And that's going to bring the whole thing, double it basically, up to plus 2,017 going into game 6, which is another 5 versus 1 seed. Number 5, Miami versus number 1, Houston in Kansas City, Missouri. Look, we're showing Houston's going to win this one 9 times out of 10. That's what it is here. Miami was 27-7. They won the ACC, but it wasn't the strongest year for the ACC. Let's not kid ourselves. Isaiah Wong is their do-it-all guard, 16.1 points per game and 3.3 assists, leads the team. They can score. That is what Miami has going for them. They were 31st in the nation in points per game at 79.1. Unfortunately, they give up 71.6 points per game. It goes along with that fast pace. And Houston is going to play to that pace. Houston, 33-3. They won the American Conference. Marcus Sasser, their leading scorer at 16.9 points per game. Jamal Sheed, 5.4 assists per contest, leads the way. Houston, I was a little bit worried about them in that first round. They beat Northern Kentucky by 9 points. Really good, really big 17-point win over Auburn. I think the arrow is just flashing green, pointing up for this Houston team, who was the number 2 team in the nation coming into this tournament. Again, this is a weird one where we show, because it's a big line, Miami is a more likely than not cover. Because of their ability to score, that does concern me a little bit. So I'm going to play it safe. Take Houston money line. I do believe they're going to win, but I don't know that they cover the 7. So we will take Houston money line minus 320 at Bovada for our 6th pick in this parlay. And that, that minus 320 is not going to do a ton. It's going to take us up to plus 2678 from that plus 2,000 we were previously. All right. Let's get to this one. The Princeton Tigers, the number 15 seed Princeton Tigers, the Cinderella story of this tournament so far, against number 6 Creighton. We're showing Creighton's going to win this one, very similar to the last game, about 9 times out of 10. Princeton was 23-8. They won the Ivy League. And they've been a really fun story so far, but they're outmatched right now. They don't have the size. They don't have the talent that this Creighton team did. 23 and 12 on the season, coming off of a good win over Baylor, 85-76 in the second round of the tournament. They've got Kalkbrenner in the middle. They've got Ryan Nemhard. There's a lot of talent on this Creighton team. We're showing again, because it's a giant line, Creighton likely covers, but I don't think they're going to be able to. An incredibly smart team, but pardon me, Princeton likely covers. Important difference there. Princeton's an incredibly smart team, but and this was mentioned yesterday on Bettor's Delight. If you haven't checked out this week's episode, do so right after this. But I think the extra week to prepare for Creighton against Princeton is really going to hurt this Princeton team. Nobody expected them to be where they were, and I think that's likely what played a part in their ability to advance. So we're going to take Creighton -10, -110 at Bovada, our 7th pick in this parlay, and that is going to bring the number up to plus 5,204, 7 of 8 picks in. Let's get to the last one. Great game here. Number 3, Xavier. Number 2, Texas. Xavier scores, Texas scores. Xavier shoots well, Texas shoots well. Xavier gives up a lot of points. Texas doesn't give up a ton of points. And I think that might be where the difference comes here. The lines show us, and this is pretty shocking for a number 2 versus a number 3 seed, the Texas wins this one outright about 70% of the time. Xavier was 27-9 on the year. They were second place in the Big East, coming off of a win over Pitt. Look, no disrespect to Pitt or Kennesaw State, but Xavier hasn't really beaten anybody to get to this point. Sully Bohm, their guard, the leader in points per game, 16.5, and Colby Jones, 4.3 assists, leads the way. The thing is, I mean, the X factor for Xavier is 81.2 points per game, 14th in the nation. They can put the ball in the basket. They're incredibly unselfish. They play as a team. 19.3 assists is second in the nation. And these are the stats you look at when you're like, could this be an upset? However, they give up 73.8 points per game, which is a little bit scary for me. Texas, 28-8 on the year, second place in the Big 12. Marcus Carr leads the way, 15.8 points per game and 4 assists per game. They score 77.8 points per game, which is 50th in the nation, and they give up 67.2 points per game, which is good, not great. I think at the end of the day, we're showing, similar to the outright win, Texas covers this one about 70% of the time. I think the athletes on Texas, this is an incredibly athletic, deep roster, is going to be too much. It's going to overwhelm this Xavier team. I'm comfortable. Texas -4, -110 at Bovada as our 8th and final pick in the parlay this week. And as you can see, if you're checking us out on YouTube, that number did just crack 5 digits. The parlay for this week will be plus 10,026. $100 wins $10,000, basically. Well, I hope you guys are enjoying this NCAA tournament as much as I am. As always, thank you again for your support, for the love you show, and for helping the show grow week in, week out. It means a lot, and I thank you very much. That is going to be the Sweet 16 edition of In Pursuit of a Parlay. I have been Chris Horwedel. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, and we'll see you back here next week.